All right, welcome to Get Real with Chris and Mark. I'm Chris Hill, and this is Mark Frisco, and we're here to get real with you guys today.
Yeah, really get real.
Really get real?
That's right. So we're talking about market stats today, right?
I know we're like sitting here like going through our did you see this? Did you see
this
that?
This is how well prepared we are.
Yeah.
Okay. So literally we're sitting here like, oh, look at this. And I was like, Chris, let's just jump on here and do what we're doing right now.
Right.
Some of the interesting observations that we've had thus far. First one being Calvert County units. So where is that? Let's see. So October of 2021, there were 160 homes sold in Calvert County. And in October of 2022, there were 102.
So right away, like even if you have a significantly higher sales price,
so
we're selling a lot less houses.
36% less sales, October to October.
Third.
Yeah, which is crazy. Makes me feel really good because I'm down personally in units for October, but I'm not down 36%.
Okay, good.
So I feel like I'm beating the market, which is good. So what does that mean? You know, that drop in units. What does that mean to you? Chris?
I mean, it means different things for us. But like, let's think about like what does it mean to the consumer, right? Like, does it, the actual person out there going to buy a house or sell a home, right? Like that's what matters here. Mm-hmm. So if you're selling a home, I mean, what's the inventory, Mark? What's the
Oh, that's
active?
a good question. And that's the biggest thing that changes is as the amount of units decrease, it starts to change the amount of months of inventory.
Right.
So there's two ways that months of inventory can change. That can be new listings coming to market and the active inventory increasing, and then the amount of sales that are occurring going down. And we're currently in a situation where the sales have gone down substantially. So currently active is 204 versus last year in October there was 158 at this time. So right there, that translates to a double in the months of inventory. So there was 158. At the same time, 160 homes were selling per month. So that means there was 1 month of inventory, whereas now there's 204 listings and only 102 are selling a month, meaning there's 2 months of inventory. Right. Now, historically, 2 months of inventory isn't a lot. Right. So, I think that when our market was at its worst, we had 6 to 9 months of inventory, and that was truly like a buyer's market is 6 to 9 months of inventory. But what's happened is we've seen the sentiment of the market shift more towards a buyer's market. That's kind of what I've noticed.
Yeah, me too, for sure. And I mean, I think do you think it's because of the track record we've had this far, like what's been going on in the market for honestly, Mark, we've had very busy market for the last several years, actually. I mean, let's be real, right?
Yep.
And do you think there's becomes and when the inventory diminished, you know this last year, it was struggling. You'd struggle as a buyer to find a house and then multiple offers on the same house. Yeah. So now the inventory, even though it's grown a little bit, it hasn't really blown up.
Right. So it's only grown by 40 units, and we're looking at Calvert County.
Right.
All these are fairly similar. We may touch on some of the other counties too, but it's only grown by 40 units active on the market, but at the same time, the amount of sales has dropped. And yes, so there's not much inventory. So going back to say 2011. I think in 2011 there were like 600 homes on the market in any county, and 100 of them were foreclosures back then. You remember that?
Yeah, of course I remember.
It was crazy, and the average days on market was I think 120 days back then.
Now what's our average days here?
Average days right now is 25.
Yeah, St. Mary's is 28. Interesting though, like in St. Mary's, they said the dollar volume, our dollar volume is down like 25% year over year, and that means it's because it's very similar numbers to Calvert, honestly.
Yep.
165 in 2021 to 123 this year.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, and it's a 25% decrease in
units, which translates to 25% in volume, whereas in Calvert County it was a negative 33% in sold volume. So what's really interesting, you'll hear people still talking about how the market's still up. And in which case, if we switch to these other stats, you'll start to see that median sales price October of 2021 to October of 2022 in St. Mary's County is even.
Right. I saw this at first time, by the way, like
Even.
dead even. 360, right?
Haven't seen that year over year number to be even on value. By the way, if we were to go back and we were to look at stats sometime between, when I was looking the other day, it looked like July from settled inventory that settled in July had a peak. And when I went back and I looked at that, if we were to look at that number now, it'd probably be 10%. So we were probably up 10% in value July to July, and now we're even. So that means that we've actually lost 10% in value since July.
And 10%'s $36,000
on average.
On average.
On average, $36,000 in value. And some people would say, "Oh my goodness, the market's so bad. You know, it's a horrible time to sell a house."
No.
So not true, because the reality is if we were to go back even farther, 2 or 3 years, we're still up 20%.
Well, right.
So I think average in St. Mary's County, and this is a made-up statistic.
Made-up statistics.
Yeah, this one's not on the paper in front of us.
Mark statistic.
This is a mark statistic, but it was somewhere around 300, 320, 330, something like that, like pre-pandemic.
You hear the media and you hear the interest rate situation, and I mean, for one thing, the Fed rate versus mortgage rate thing is a real problem for people, I think, to understand, because you hear the Fed's adjusted the rate and then people immediately think mortgage rates are going up 0.75 of a point, you know,
right.
And it's a very different number. But they do affect one another.
They have an impact, but it's not a direct.
But what do you think's causing like I mean, inventory, slight increases in inventory, but interest rates are just holding people back? I mean, is that what we're talking about here, I think? I mean...
Yeah, so I think what you've seen is a drop in demand. So, and I saw this article the other day. By the way, inflation has finally peaked. Saw an article that verified that the other day, that inflation has finally peaked. It's capped. It's actually dropped back down.
That's why the Feds are going to, their rate adjustment's going to be lower.
They're going to start, being less aggressive, which is good news, because if they continue to be more aggressive, dark future ahead, right, if that's the case. But it's not going to be the case. So the demand has decreased. So let's just think about this for a second. Let's go back to the units number. It's an easy way to understand it. So 160 properties sold last year, only 100 sold this year. That means that the demand for homes dropped that much. Because all the while, there's more homes on the market today than there were last year.
Right.
So it's not like there's a lack of inventory to purchase. The demand dropped that much. The demand has dropped even farther than that. Because last year, when we were doing 160 units, there were probably 2 buyers
for every house
that didn't get a house.
Right.
So the demand was probably more like 450 buyers.
So where have the buyers gone?
So they've gone on the sidelines. A lot of them have gone on the sidelines. So
and I mean, I think the stock market, and honestly, I think this is one of the first times. I actually said this several months ago. I think this is the first time in my career that the midterm elections.
That you felt it?
I think I actually felt.
I've always felt a little something, but more so this time.
I think so.
And I felt an uptick after it was over. I don't know about you. But
there's a little something happening.
The week after the election, I was like,
I think people were just starting to maybe they just were just tense about everything and trying to get it done. But I mean, I worry the rate situation, and that'll correct itself over time. Like, I mean, I feel like this is all...
what happens, and this is my opinion, so there may be factual data that backs this up, but I don't have it on me. So again, this is a mark stat.
It's because we're so prepared,
right? But what I see is that the buyer mix changes. So essentially, the last couple years, we have been rocking and rolling in step-up purchases. So folks are selling their house, making a buttload of money, buying the next house. Interest rate was super sexy, so jumping from 350 to 700 was not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
Now that has changed.
Why would you sell your house right now if you've got you've got a 2.5%?
Everybody's got a big anchor in their living room called a 2.5% interest rate. So oftentimes I have the conversation today with folks. They bought their house 2 years ago for $300. They can sell it for now, or it's probably longer than that, but they can sell it now at $400. They want to buy a place at $500. It's like, cool, we're going to get $100,000. We're going to put it down on the $500,000 in our house. Your payment's $1,600 today. It's going to be $3,200 tomorrow. And they're like, holy, what? So that is a tough sell. So what we've seen is what I've seen is that the buyer mix is changing.
I
meaning
agree.
that the step-up purchases are going away. The sellers that you're seeing right now are, in a lot of cases, people downsizing. Because guess what? If I'm selling my house for $500 and I'm moving to South Carolina and buying a house for $300 and I've owned it for 25 years, it doesn't matter because I'm paying cash for that house when I get down there. So I don't really care what the interest rate is.
Right.
The second thing is we're seeing a lot more first-time home buyer activity. So first-time home buyers have been shut out of the market. So for the last couple of years, as a first-time home buyer that had no money, that needed closing help assistance.
Right. Now they can get some of that stuff.
Now they can get it.
Yeah, the incentives are there in most cases. I think people, and there was something I read this morning. It was actually about like, this is our business. It's one of those things we see, but like the wake-up call for a seller, right? Like right now, do you need to sell? Right. If you need to sell, that's it's different needs, wants.
You have to sell. It is what it is.
Right. And I always go back to like, back in the early part of the career where there was so many short sales, and I'd sit down with somebody and they're so far upside down on the sale of their house, and you're meeting them around their kitchen table and they're literally crying and it's so awful, right?
We did a Century 21 class on short sales this past week that I had to do as an elective, so I just threw it in the mix.
That's awesome.
And it was like me and two other agents on there that knew
what a short sale was.
What it was or what it was like. And, I think the guy who was running the class, he kept asking questions, and he was like, well, who's done one? I was like, I've done one. And then he's like, how does this get handled? And I'm like, look, I've had it this way, this way, this way, this way. But
we did a ton of short sales back in the day.
We don't have that, much anymore. And I don't think
I think the mortgage industry's changed because of what happened back in 08, 09, right?
Honestly, I think that we're going to lose a little bit more value throughout the rest of this year.
We don't have much left.
What?
This year.
Oh, yeah, touche.
Right? Yeah, it's a month.
Right, and into early next year. So in the winter months, I think there's going to be some really good deals to be had for buyers. Sellers, if you're thinking about selling in the spring, I'm telling a lot of my sellers that later in the spring might be better this year because I think
it's going to be a late spring too. I agree.
I think we'll still hit the ground running in
March.
Yeah, early March, like normal. Yeah. But we're going to build momentum into it. So, and if rates tend to come down, if they come down a little bit,
then we got a whole different animal.
Yeah. So I think that we'll be good. Because here's the thing: there's still a lot of demand that's just sitting on the sidelines right now. That's the difference between this market and previous turndowns in the market.
Right.
Is that before, when the market started to come back, everybody was scared to buy a house. Because they just saw what everybody went through, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I'm not doing that."
They didn't want to sit around the kitchen table crying, right?
That's what they witnessed with their family members.
I get it,
and stuff. And that's just not going to be the case this go around. I don't foresee it. I mean, could it be? Sure, that possibility's there, but I don't see it based on what we have.
Well, it's funny is like when we talked about this like a few months ago, and like I expected the rates even to go a little higher than what they're gonna go to. I think.
Yeah, I expected to see 9%.
Did you? I was saying like 8. Yeah. I thought we'd see 8, and it looks like we're gonna be. I think, and things settled down recently a little bit from the rate. So I think there's some less volatility going on there, and it's going to be
bouncing between like 6 and 7.5, depending on points.
Yeah, which honestly, I keep saying this. That's not a bad rate.
Horrible.
It's not a bad rate, right? I mean, we can't all have the win the lottery at 2%, right?
But I think that we're going to see some really good buying opportunities this winter.
I agree,
and I think that's because I think a lot of folks are going to overdo it. They're going to overslash, they're going to over-negotiate because they're scared, because this is the first time that we've had a turn down like this. They're scared of what could be behind it or what the spring's going to be like. And then...
Well, that's for us to help them with, you know what I mean? Like to figure out...
Right, we need to be able to guide sellers to explain that that's not going to... And look, if you're a seller, you can still sell. Part of the problem with this market is that you got sellers still trying to price on top of yesterday's prices, going to market, and then finding out that, we can't do that. You need to be below yesterday's prices by about 10%.
See, and that's what I've always said. This is something that really like fascinates me. Like in real estate, I think the media is like delayed, right, for us. Do you know what I mean by that? Like,
I think that's anything.
Well,
when you're living it, you're living it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is like, the public's here. I met somebody the other day. They said they hear the market's so hot. And I'm like, well, it was,
right.
I mean, like I wouldn't call it hot now, so
it's more like lukewarm.
Lukewarm, right? Right. Maybe a little chilly.
Maybe a little chilly, yeah. Depending on the price point in the area, it might be a little chilly.
Right.
But the weird thing about this market is that if you can figure out where the right price is, it'll move. And it's weird. I'm having this conversation with a seller today, and I'm like, look, man, maybe you should move it another 5,000. I said, I don't want you to overdo it.
Right.
Usually I'm doing price reductions. They're larger than that. But right now I'm playing with this market a little bit more just because I'm trying to feel things out.
To see what happens, right.
And in this particular case, he owns the house in cash. And, we don't care. If we still got it next year, we'll wait till next spring to sell it. But I'm like, look, maybe you should move it. And he's like, I just don't understand why why don't they just come make me an offer?
Right. I know. How often do you hear that, though? I mean, I hear it all the time.
And it's like, look, man, if we move the needle $25,000 on your house, we'd probably get multiple offers right now, and we would sell it at the market price.
Right.
Just like we were doing before.
Right.
Because let's face it, the values that we were listing at before were below market.
Right.
We just didn't know that because we were based on yesterday's prices, which were cheaper than today's sentiment. And that's all we got to do right now to figure it out. And so we just got to price a little bit lower than yesterday to be with the market today. And you'll notice that there's still demand there and people make an offer. But people don't just make an offer. Like, it takes, man, I don't want to step on too many of our co-op agents, but you got to sell a house sometimes. Sometimes you have to sell the customer on not necessarily, hey, you need to buy this house, but at what price would you like to buy the house?
Well, and that's the thing. Our clients, we have a similar style in that regard, right? Like, it's like my job is to give you what the market tells you it should be or worth, or what we think it should be, and this is what we think we can help you get to, and that sort of thing. What do I think will happen? We don't have crystal balls, so we don't know. Yeah. But it's always down to the, you got to give it a shot. You got to give it a shot.
And we had a conversation about a customer this morning with one of my team members, and house is listed at $345.
Okay.
Customer's like, I'm not going a penny above $325, and it's like, all right, dude, well, offer them $320.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, you are the market right now. Put it on paper and send it. And it's funny. Contrarily, we'll send that offer, and then we'll get like angry real estate agent on the other phone, or a seller's like, this is ridiculous. We had that happen a couple weeks. Agent and seller were like, oh, this is ridiculous. I can't believe we offer that. And I actually statistically proved our offer. I said, hey, look, you had an appraisal done a couple months ago. If you take into consideration the comps sold in July. If you look at the average sales price between July and now in the market, it's dropped about 10%. Our offer is close to 10% under. We are the market.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't prove it.
No, it's funny you say that. All the numbers in the world don't tell you anything. It doesn't mean anything. Yep. A house is worth what somebody's willing to pay for it, period.
Exactly.
Right? And it's funny, I showed two houses today, and they're literally next door to each other, okay? And they're $25,000, $30,000 price difference between the two. One's larger than the other one, but not as great a condition. The other one is is a nice house, but what got me, what made me think about this is, if your neighbor and you are competing to sell your house, two things. First thing is conditions, super important in this market, right?
Yep.
Right? I mean, I don't care. The inventory situation doesn't mean anything.
Why is it important, though?
Well, because the buyer now has a little more control, right? Like, they have a little more they're a little bit more in the driver's seat.
They're pickier.
Yeah.
And they're pickier
and they should
because
be
guess what? If I'm going to go from spending $1,600 to spending $3,200, I better not have to do anything to the house. Right. It better be everything that I want, which is another thing that we're having to sell past right now. It's like, if the house needs work, make an offer and ask the seller for some sort of concession to take care of whatever that is. If you love everything about it, but the payment is stretching you, which I want to touch on in just a minute. So remind me to talk about payment in a minute.
See, we could literally talk for days.
I literally just think of that. Where are we at on time?
We're way over time, but it's okay. Let's just keep going.
Yeah. So, but if the payment is really high today, and you're going to have to put $10,000 into the house, those two things are too hard to stomach. But guess what, seller? Give the buyer $10,000 to do the things. There are ways to do that. Give the buyer $10,000 to do the things that they want to do. And then all of a sudden, they're comfortable with the payment. They're comfortable with the house because they liked everything else but the blue carpet. Yes, people do not like blue carpet.
Blue carpet, I know, right?
I can't tell you how many, but I love that carpet. Well, guess what? People today do not like blue carpet.
Right.
I don't know that. I've had a buyer in my car. It's like, I want the one with the blue carpet.
I want the blue carpet
house. Or the green carpet. Man, I feel like I just offended so many people.
I'm sure you did. Hopefully they're none of your sellers.
Right. If I offended you, call Chris. All right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He's nice. So the second thing was payment. So buyers have to understand that the payment today is temporary. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you look at history, with a rate spike like we've had, historically rates will come down again. And when they do, you can refinance and you can get rid of that payment. But the deal that we can negotiate today lasts forever. Because guess what? If rates were still 2.5%, we'd still be appreciating.
Right.
We'd be another 10% in value above what we dropped in 10%. So if you just factor that, $500,000 house, we might save $100,000 today versus what it would be if rates were where you want them to be, where the payment is comfortable.
Right.
So guess what? If you got to get into a little bit higher payment, even if it's $1,000 more, that's a lot of $1,000 pay. It's $1,000 payments that you can make versus the alternative, which factors into the payment that you want. So
yeah, and hopefully the rates change, everything changes,
and then you drop that.
Right.
So the reality is, you might only have that $1,000 extra. It might drop to $500 extra.
Right.
You know, after a year or so, or 6 months.
And we do expect the rates to come back down.
Yep.
It's just,
There'll be a refinance boom, I think.
In a year from now.
Yeah, maybe before then.
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we might even see it like the backside of 2023.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I was thinking late summer, early, in the fall of next year. We'll see what happens. But I've spent a lot of time in the last few weeks with like the chief economists and stuff. I was at the NAR conference in Orlando, and
what do they think?
So much. Well, kind of the same things we're saying, but see, the thing is, even like Southern Maryland, right? There's regional changes, like between Calvert, St. Mary's, and Charles.
They're all different.
They're all different,
Same
right?
thing. I listed a house in Anne Arundel County in Edgewater a couple weeks ago. We had 7 offers, and it went for $20,000 over the asking price cash.
Right.
So every market's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I truly believe that.
People ask me that question, and we've done generalized market stats today. All right.
Well, right. Yeah. Let's be clear.
But
like these are general.
people ask me that question all the time. Like, how's the market? Well. Where?
Right.
And at what price point?
And honestly, for us, it's not just where county specific. It could be, and it's not even necessarily city. It could be a neighborhood specific.
Yep.
I mean, like that's how tight it gets sometimes.
Or a type of property. Waterfront property is still moving right now. Still getting lots of activity.
One of these days, I want us to talk about like some of the higher end stuff and what's going on with that, because that's definitely a conversation we should have.
I think that luxury real estate in Southern Maryland is the best investment that you can purchase. Because guess what?
Yeah.
Just look anywhere else.
For anything comparable.
Anywhere else. For
I agree
anything
with
comparable. You. So, and I'll give you I don't want to use myself as an example, but look, you could buy a house down here. And here's a beautiful thing about luxury real estate, by the way, which a lot of people are scared to own a big house.
Well, right.
But the market's gone up, 40%, right?
Yeah.
So if you bought a house in the past couple of years, it's probably gone up close to 40%. If you bought a house that was waterfront for $1 million in 2018, 2019, that house is worth like 1.3, 1.4 million today.
Without even seeing it, right?
You didn't do anything.
Right. It's the same house.
You just live there.
Right.
Now, alternatively, you could also live in a $300,000 house, and it's worth $100,000 more.
That's right. Yeah.
Which would you rather have?
Right. I get it. No.
So,
yeah. I mean, honestly, luxury real estate's are a really good investment if you can do it.
Yep, and that's just with the market changes.
Yeah.
So that's just.
Imagine if you upgraded it at the same time.
Well,
right?
it's not even just upgrades are huge, because at the high price point, I mean, $50,000 in finishes could be worth $250,000 in sales
Absolutely, I tell
price,
people that all the time.
which is insane, and sometimes it's a struggle to get the sellers to change the blue carpet.
Right, I get it.
But at the same time, if you look at other areas, look at Annapolis. The same house here that's $1 million. It's $2 million plus in Annapolis.
Right.
It's only a matter of time before that trickles out here.
Absolutely, it is. I say
and
it all
it's
the time.
making it here now, because guess what? The majority of the waterfront buyers that are active here right now aren't from here.
No, that's true. That is really right on.
They're from Northern Virginia. They're from Northern Maryland. They're from other states.
Well, because they're seeing the value, right? Like they see the value, right? I mean, like that same, they see it.
Yep.
We don't see it here because we're kind of condensed. We're here used to it,
we
right?
think it's expensive.
Right. I do believe
cheap.
Southern Maryland is the last bastion of affordable housing in the state of Maryland, to be honest with you. I mean, I think maybe some, Western Maryland, things like places like that. But
yeah, I was going to say maybe the Eastern Shore.
Right. Some of the Eastern Shore stuff too, but. And basically, well, anyway, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, man, we done talked for.
I know I could talk another half an hour, 45 minutes
Yeah.
about this stuff, but
Probably a good thing we didn't have cocktails.
yeah, I know, right?
We'd still be going.
Still be going.
So,
well, with that, Mark, how can people find us, Mark?
you can find us on the baynet.com/podcast. You can find us on the Baynet's Facebook page, Spotify. There's like 20 other outlets too. YouTube, Amazon Music. I don't know.
Sounds good.
Just Google us.
Yeah, find
You
them.
can probably find us there.
Go to
now.
the Baynet Facebook
The
page.
Baynet is the best outlet to find us.
That's the easiest, right?
The easiest one.
All right, with that, have a great day.
Yeah.